Action. Right, we are back. This is the Cheech and Manny show. I am
What?
Manny. This
Wait,
is.
we
Oh,
renamed it.
I was gonna get there, but
Oh,
just
I'm sorry. I'm
just
sorry.
for our viewers out there. Just a little warning: we're gonna rebrand ourselves because we now realize we've been going past music. So now we are the Cheech and Manny show, and we are your professors. I'm Manny. Cheech is right across from me.
Hey, how's
This is
everybody?
what do we call our university of?
The Cheech and Manny.
Yeah, the University of Cheech and Manny's. You come to our show, you take our courses, and I think this is where our show is evolving. So we're gonna do more than music now. I like this. It's kind of like a cool um, lyceum, like in the philosophers' time, where they would talk about so many
Yeah,
topics, and this is the University of Cheech and Manny. So, Cheech, what's going on,
yeah.
brother?
Not much, man. How you doing? How's everything?
Life is good, man. How you dealing with the 100-degree weather?
I got the AC kicking. It's not really bothering me too much right now. I stay inside. You know,
Did you work at the
it, it,
temple?
it I yeah. I texted you the BS that I got today.
You got a nice little reward for all your years of service, huh?
Yeah, I got a great reward, but
And they probably
I'm grateful.
and they probably hit you with the don't spend it all into one place.
Yeah,
Don't spend
grateful
it
to have a
all in all one
job.
place.
Grateful to have a job. I was messing with Frenchie. Um, so I got the so Frenchie's a person we work with who somebody showed him the Cheech and Manny show, and it just says he's from outer space, Frenchie, and he
Cheech.
and he's seen Manny on the show. Our good friend Ernest showed him, and he goes, "That's Manny, but that's not Cheech. That's not Cheech." So today I went in like I was all pissed off, and I was like, "What the heck is Ernest doing? Telling telling you that I look like some ugly guy on some show called the Cheech and Manny Show?" And I brought it up. I'm like, "Who is this ugly guy? I'm not that guy." He's like, "I know that's not you. That is not you. Ernest shouldn't have shit done that." uh,
That's too funny,
just
man.
to
That's good
get
times.
my day, go by. But yeah, but grateful to have a job. So I can I thought about it. I thought about what I sent you, and then I just said, you know what? I'm not going to be negative on this. I've gotten a lot of money from them and bonuses on in the past, and I'm due to get one huge one supposedly from our leader. If you've been there X amount of hours, like you put in 1 million hours, and I'm almost there, you get like I think you get like $1,000 or some crazy shit. So I should be almost there at this point. I put in more, almost way more. Like you're 31, so as long as you've been alive, I've been there. 29, 30. Wait,
Yeah,
you're 31 or
y-
wait, no, wait, you're 33?
wait, what year did you start at the temple?
98. So you were like 7 years
I
old.
was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5 years old when you started.
Oh my God, you were 5.
Yeah.
It's
And I
insane.
remember I started going there when I was in third, fourth grade to temple a lot.
Yeah, I
And I remember
remember.
that I
Yeah,
told you they took us on that lame field trip when it was called Fresh Fields.
oh, so you were one of those kids walking around.
Most
I,
likely, yeah.
we would joke and be like, why don't they take these poor kids to like the zoo or to a park? Why are they taking them here? Stupid, you
They're
know?
trying to indoctrinate us.
Oh yeah, they were trying to brainwash you
Come on,
back
kids,
then.
work at the temple. We're happy here.
Yeah,
But dude, let's go on to bigger and better things. So
yeah,
we're gonna be talking about continuing our, I guess, our psychoanalytic series. Now
yeah.
we are going to take a look at the legendary Carl Gustav Jung. And I'm pretty sure it's
Yes,
Gustav. I think that's his middle name.
it is Gustav. Yeah,
Um, this is psychology, one of psychology's pioneering figures in the 20th century.
Yep.
Very interesting dude, and has a big influence on so many things. And today's ep, we've looked at Adler. We looked at Adler and Crowley's conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's well established. We think it happened. Now, who took from who is another interesting debate. Um,
Right.
and we talked about Mr. Viktor Frankl and his
Yep.
logotherapy. But now we're going to move on to the analytic tradition spearheaded by Carl Jung. So I don't know where you want
Right.
to take this or where you want to start.
Yeah, I'm gonna get into his life and stuff, but he was from Switzerland, so he's not Viennese. He's not from the Viennese school,
Right.
but he kind of gets lumped in there a little bit. Is that true? You think or not?
Yeah,
Because
and
he's compared to the
w-
greats.
100%. And I think the reason why is because he was a huge student of Sigmund Freud.
Freud. Right. Right. That's right.
And they had an interesting collaboration in the beginning.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was a huge admirer as Freud. Actually, Freud called him his best student.
Yeah. Yeah.
So um Swiss, but obviously he's associated with the Vienna Circle, but that's at the
Sort
same.
of adopted by the Viennese school
No, I know. I
because
feel like
like
the Vienna School is its own. It was a term. It was something they came up with after, but at
right.
that time, when psychoanalysis was new, Carl Gustav Jung was the prince of Freudianism,
Yeah.
where he was
Yeah.
a huge admirer. Freud saw him as a son. Adler was already a rebel. Frankl was
Yeah.
already, even though he studied psychoanalysis, later on, obviously, he rejected that idea of the pleasure principle. And
Right.
so Jung started out as a faithful. He's sort of like the the Socrates, the Plato to Socrates, where
Right.
Plato
Right.
was Socrates' student. And obviously, he'll end up going places where Freud never would have thought.
Would you consider him the fourth out of the four? Freud, Adler, Frankel, and then
Yeah, I'll
Jung?
say so. Yeah, I'm surprised he's not like more popular in that field like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I got we'll just dive right in. I got a lot of stuff about him. This will be a long series about the great Carl Gustav Jung. Um, so I'll start it. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and is it? Am I saying this right? Psychoanalyst? Is that
Psychoanalyst.
yes? Who founded the School of Analytical Psychology. He wrote over 20 books. He was an illustrator, correspondent, and academic, best known for his concepts of archetypes and founded analytical psychology. He is known as the most influential psychologist of all time. I think that's a true statement, or would you agree with that?
He's like one of the most influential psychologists.
Of all time.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think
Okay.
his he's very that he is one of I mean for so many reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. He's a tough one, so I want to make sure I'm.
Hmm.
Um, so born in 1875, July 6th, his birthday would be coming up. Died June 1961. He really had a nice life, a long life. His work is influenced in the fields of psychiatry, anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, psychology, and religious studies. Now, I get the anthropology thing because I looked into that. He studied with tribes and indigenous people. The archaeological I can't speak archaeology. I think he just wanted to go to school for that. I don't think he had anything to do with actual archaeology.
Sounds right.
You know, he had an interest in it. Um, So we had a friendship with the great Sigmund Freud. Freud regarding the joint vision, human psychology. Freud saw him not only as the ear he had been seeking to take forward his new science of psychoanalysis, but as means to legitimize his own work. Freud made Jung the president of Freud's new founded International Psychoanalytical Association. But then Jung had problems with Freud, so they parted ways. And we're going to get heavily into that
Right.
because that was probably the best thing he did because that's where his
Right.
genius really got full potential came
Right.
out, you know?
Right. Right.
Kind of like when a band, we always got to compare stuff to bands. When a band is signed to a shitty label and they learn a lot from that label, but then they go to a better label and they take off and they become
Right.
their own,
Right.
or a producer or something like that.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because that's one of the famous divorces in a way. They ended up
Oh
like not
yeah,
they ended up not liking each other anymore. And both
oh yeah,
Freud was very hurt when he started sort of, not accepting Freud. It's not interesting. Like I would say Freud is better than a record label. I feel like
yeah.
Freud would be the maybe Phil Spector or the
Oh,
these
like a producer.
kind of like these controversial figures that are geniuses, but given
Yeah,
today, I think they're very controversial, right?
yeah,
Um, but Freud is really responsible for philosophizing about the unconscious.
yeah.
Like it like before it was not really done to the level that he was trying to do it. It was never seen before.
Right,
So
right.
you're right. Young, I guess, and Young studied, I think he started to be a psychiatrist. So he was in
Yeah,
that psychiatric tradition, and psychiatry back then was very different from what it is now because now it has incorporated what Freud started with the origins of psychotherapy,
right,
which is
right.
essentially that's what it is, psychoanalysis. And
Yeah,
he obviously went in intense directions, Young, because
yeah.
as you and I were both
Oh,
fans, and he actually didn't reject religion like Freud. That's another difference.
yeah,
And he
yeah.
thought that humans were more than just the will to pleasure, which
Right,
again
right.
that makes sense. And I don't know if you were there, if you were a fly off the wall. Like, what do you think? I think we talked about this, but do you agree with Freud that human beings, their wills are motivated by these instincts, these pleasures?
Some people. I can't. You can't. You can't say everybody. Everybody's different. You know what I mean? Some people their motive. There's like they want to pleasure themselves constantly, and that becomes an addiction. You know what I mean? Jung felt completely different about that. you know um I'm gonna get into all that the debate and stuff, but I don't think that's true for me.
Right. And he got it from because Freud, he started on like a lot. Like if you look at Freud was a philosopher, right?
Yeah,
And he was a creative thinker. I mean, honestly, coming up with those concepts, again, think about it. There was psychology and
genius.
philosophy with Aristotle and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's different. This time, he decided to build the architecture of mind. Now, Jung is going to take those like ideas and just start creating this insane psychology of the soul from
yeah.
psychology's perspective, like the unconscious, conscious. Um,
It's like Freud only looked at the mind, and Jung looked at the mind and spirit together.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because
Right.
Freud would.
That's how I, from studying Jung a lot. That's what I got compared to anyone in that time. Maybe well, Frankel would be close to
And,
Jung with
and
that concept.
it's funny because with the sciences, there was a divorce from faith. So
Yeah,
Jung would be sort of like one of the maybe people like Frankel trying to bring it back a little bit to like the mysticism, the spirituality.
yeah,
He himself like was not Catholic, or I don't think he professed any faith. He's father was a Christian.
Well, I'm gonna talk to you about that
Right.
because Jung has a religious background,
Right. But
which is
I
pretty
think he
cool.
became more of an esoteric, just based on
Oh
what,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because his
He
psychology
got
gets
turned,
really esoteric. But Freud is a
and
genius.
that's what I love. I love that about Jung. It's
Right.
very it's almost mystical and
A
going
lot of
towards
people. Hmm.
like pop psychology, like our boy, my
And,
boy Crowley. You know what I mean?
and, and going back to the archaeology idea, the reason why he was interested in archaeology, because again, he was now more interested in humanity's history. And so at the time, there were insane archaeological studies that were being released. And
Right.
he began looking at sort of like this archaeological evidence of many things of human civilization.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then
Egypt was huge at
that
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 time when they
that would be
discovered
one.
King
Yeah,
Tut.
that would be
Yeah,
one. The research that was coming out of there. So
yeah.
that's how he got archaeology. What Jung did is that he combined a lot of fields: archaeology, anthropology, philosophy, psychology, and I'll add there mysticism, Gnosticism, and occultism. Those three. And he created this
Yep.
blend of psychology that is very, we're going to be talking about the Red Book, but when you read his
Yeah.
psychology, he has a lot of interesting concepts and ideas. The only problem is that from a scientific perspective, they can't be proven. And again, because he
Yeah.
was touching on the spiritual, uh,
Yeah.
attempting. But that's what we're going to be talking about. Carl Jung is a genius, probably one of the most genius thinkers. I think he has a more
Oh
influence
yeah.
in culture, particularly, we're going to be talking about this, Joseph Campbell,
Yep.
who
He was
takes his
inspired by him.
concepts with the myth and all that, and then starts really
The
going,
hero's journey and
right,
stuff like that.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Um. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you some of these questions before we talk about his life. So Jung created some of the best known psychological concepts, including, and we don't have to go, crazy. Synchronicity, archetype. Am I saying this wrong? Architectural phenomenon, the collective unconscious, the psychological complex, extraversion, and Introversion. So, let me ask you about the first one. We could just briefly give a definition. This
Yeah.
concept on like a synchronicity. Now, when I think of synchronicity, is fate and synchronicity completely different? Is synchronicity a coincidence or things are meant to be? How did he view it? How do you view it?
Yeah, so synchronicity. It's funny. I did a project in college, and I took a
And
class
it's
on.
and it's a great song. It's a great song
Oh
too by
yeah,
the
from the
police.
police. But I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like his idea of fate.
Yeah,
So it's like a connecting principle.
right.
So what he thought, again, like this idea of he called it synchronicity. I'm not sure where the
Mhm.
etymology of that word exactly came from. But yeah, you're right. It's sort of a causal connecting principle. He thought that, like the psychological events, they are linked to the external world
Right,
by
right,
what you just said, meaningful coincidences rather than causal chains.
right.
So
So
it's sort of similar.
synchronicity,
Go ahead.
synchronicity is coincidences, opposed to fate, which could be esoteric, like it's meant to happen.
Right. And this is really important because this is Jung's vision of the world. So, like, yeah, exactly. What he thought was, and again, he's basing this on a sort of like, and I actually did a project on this on Taoism in the class. Why did I do this? Because I realized when I was studying the Tao, off the Tao Te Ching, I realized that Jung possibly took a lot out of this. Where in
Yeah,
Taoism, synchronicity is a key thing to understand the Tao, the way of the world.
right,
Because again, first of all, causal chains. In philosophy, there's cause and effect, especially Aristotelian philosophy.
right,
That's like the Western way of thinking, right? If something happens, a cause happens, and it sets up a chain of events,
right.
right?
It's a natural law.
Um,
Of name?
no, it would be more
It's
like metaphysics, like first causes. Like what is the cause of
because
everything?
I always go back to my boy Hermes and the Hermetic laws.
Oh, so
And
see,
like,
me personally, I toss that out the window. I feel like I go
no, but
more classical
it's,
philosopher.
it's almost like they're unavoidable, like a cause and effect. If I don't know, go on top of my house and I jump, there's a cause like, oh, I want to commit suicide, and I jump off and I die. That's the effect. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, but what I'm referring to, see, I don't know if Young would be interested in that. And maybe we could talk about that little difference. See, those hermetic laws, I would have to do more research, but from my understanding, it's I would go, but I'm more referring to like the classical philosophy stuff. Like it's called
Right.
it used to be called metaphysics. So you learn about
Aristotle started it.
this is starting with Socrates and Plato, but Aristotle brought it back to Earth. So, for example, he thought something of a first philosophy, which is the study of being. So, Heidegger, even though I disagree with Heidegger, he'll try to come up with his own concept of being. But these are the first principles and causes of things. So, what I'm talking about is potentiality and actuality. So, I'm not talking about like, someone jumps off or that's too simplistic. Like we're
Right.
going back to something like, how does something come to be? And let's start with like beginning. Like for example, like when you look at the and I wish I had more time for this, but Aristotle had this theory of four causes. It's beautiful.
Right.
He had material, formal, efficient, and final causes, which explain why something exists. And going back, he said the cause of all causes is the unmoved mover. So this is the cause. So in Western philosophy, nothing is a coincidence. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
but in Jung's case, and again, maybe you got this from the Hermetic laws, but I would have to look a little bit more into that. In Jung's case, he thought that, okay, first of all, the mind and the will are connected, right? And
Yeah.
that the internal psychological stuff are linked to the external world by very meaningful coincidences, very similar to like the Freudian step idea. But because
Yeah.
it's so there are these interesting coincidences. So an example would be like let's say, and again, and we're gonna this is a by the way, this is a very my project and presentation was showing how this is a very Eastern idea
Yeah. Yeah.
because especially Taoist, because the East looks at like if you look at like Taoism, right? In Taoism, like there isn't really a like in a cause and effect kind of like philosophy. It's more of like the way of the world is all connected.
It's a flow.
It's sort of like a flow, right? And when something happened with synchronicity, and actually this is where the police song sort of was inspired uh by that idea by Carl Jung. So I'm gonna pull up the synchronicity lyrics. Um, but the police talking about music were
It's
inspired.
crazy. We're already out of the gate. We're out of the gate and we're like hitting it heavy.
Well, let me tell you, because this is really important. And again, what you're talking, the Hermetic laws have to do a little more research because I'm not sure. I'll be honest, with you, Hermes wasn't the cause of that, but even though they say that, but
Well, somebody in the esoteric world,
yes, yes,
Hermes,
yes, yes, and
I
the
believe
esoteric
Hermes
world,
was, but also the knowledge came from the fallen angel,
yes, yes,
and Hermes got a hold of these tablets. That's the theory that I
yes.
from studying the cult.
I wonder if Jung got, but Jung, what he thought in, he tried to use psychology language, but
Yeah,
he's trying to describe events that appear or coincide in time and space and appear like it's sort of like deja vu or like this had to happen for a reason. So he
right,
thought that it was a healthy function of the mind. And
right.
when you go with the flow, as they say, um, it's healthy. And actually, the synchronicity song here from the Police says, with one breath, look at this, with one flow, you will know synchronicity, a sleep trance, a dream dance, a shared romance, synchronicity. And look what he says. He explains this, a connecting principle linked to the invisible, almost imperceptible. Now you're gonna get a sense of this is kind of like metaphysical and it can get a little esoteric. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But and actually this he used this to explain the paranormal. Because remember, I'm not sure where Jung, I'm just gonna keep it at this. I'm not sure what Jung leans on religion, but he was trying to explain, these superstitions or weirdness of the world and how like eh, um like there are strange connections in the world. How do you explain it?
Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
And that's
Well,
what
Young, I mean, when I talk about his mom, this is where the paranormal comes in because his mom was a little nuts.
right.
Literally, she was crazy, and I think it made him a little crazy too. So he, when we get there, I'll explain that. So yeah, the police are genius. They're
Yeah,
geniuses.
they explained it, and look what he says. If we share this nightmare, we can dream spiritus mundi. Because again, the connect. So what he's trying to do, and look what Sting sings. If you act as you think, the missing link, synchronicity. So he thought that the mind and the world definitely are connected. So what happens in the mind and the world are both of the same thing. And again, what ends up happening is that we think that they're coincidences. For example, like let's say we know how we were talking about the other day about JFK and Abraham Lincoln getting assassinated.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, right.
Now, JFK, and I just have to pull this up. JFK and Now, here's an example. Because again, you can't, okay, and again, we're no religion. This is not
Yeah,
classical philosophy, even though he would have been aware of classical philosophical principles,
right,
because he's constructing sort of like a metaphysic of cause, right? From the
right,
mind, which in philosophy they were trying, going back to our boy Immanuel Kant, he was trying to explain that we cannot know the things in themselves, but we construct the meaning of the world,
right, right,
right?
right, right.
So let me give you an example.
And he likes Kant. He's an influence on Young,
I
a
would
big influence.
Yes and no, and we don't have time to get into that because then we're going to go into really complex topics. But just to get more easy to understand synchronicity, listen to the Police song "All Our People Out There" because they actually explain it pretty well. And here's an example. Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy are two US presidents that had a list of uncanny coincidences regarding their lives in tragic assassinations. And look at this. Since the 1960s, a popular urban legend circulated between these two. One, elections. Both were elected to Congress exactly 100 years apart. Lincoln in 1846, Kennedy in 1946, and to the presidency
Wow.
100 years apart, one in 1860 and one in 1960. Now, in the Tao Te Ching, numbers do matter. So Young saw these topics like, how do you explain this, right? How does the mind
Yeah,
explain this? Because the mind is creating meaning out of this, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then, and
And that's not fate. That's completely
we're
different than
getting there.
fate.
I know, dude. This episode's gonna be. I'm getting to fate because I'm getting to fate. Tragedy. Both presidents were deeply concerned with civil rights. Were shot in the head on a Friday, with while with their wives, and lost
No
children.
way. On the same day?
Yes, and
Holy shit.
successors. Both were succeeded by Southern Democrats named Johnson. Andrew Johnson in 1808, Lyndon B. Johnson in 1908. So,
Wow.
so going back to synchronicity, I'm going to use the police on to explain this. Now, how does the mind explain that? Because at the one hand, one will use a probability theory. It's just probability. It's just really a
Not
probabilistic.
not this. Not Lincoln and Kennedy.
Well,
No
no,
way.
I'm telling you what the science person would say.
Right, right, right.
That it
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
probabilistic, based on probably. Now, Young, and this is just one example because there are some things in the world that you cannot explain. So how do you
Right,
explain this? Well, we're going to use this idea of the acausal connection called synchronicity. Unlike typical cause and effect relationships, synchronicity actually relies entirely on meaning rather than physical cause. So, in other words, that this actually is important and does matter to the mind. And actually, these
right.
coincidences, there must be a reason why. So why did they both die 100 years apart? Um, Here's more. Both have been boat captains. Both Lincoln and Kennedy were second children. Both were related to U.S. Senator, Attorney General, Ambassador Great Britain, and the mayor of Boston. Um, each was elected president in 60. A lot of street. Oh, here's a good one. Lincoln and Kennedy each contain 7 letters.
Holy, and that goes back to the Tao.
Well, okay, we're gonna get that and going back to the police song to explain this. A causing, a connecting principle linked to the invisible. Sting things are almost imperceptible, something inexpressible. Science insusceptible. Science can't explain it. Logic so
Yeah.
inflexible. Uh, Causally connectable. Nothing is invisible. So that's Jung's that he took actually from the Tao and Eastern ideas, because the Eastern ideas are not really interested in cause and effect. That was a Western philosophical tradition. You get
So
what I mean?
you think Sting was reading Young when he wrote this? Had to be.
Oh, 100%. Oh, no, oh, that goes without saying. Oh, yeah, that goes without saying.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
dude, it's crazy. And again, and once again, just so our viewers aren't lost, I'm gonna go back to fate because this is interesting. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. But Carl
Yeah.
Jung defined synchronicity. He called it the acausal, no cause, connecting principle. So it's like a meaningful coincidence of like two or more events that they look unrelated but are experienced together. So, and the
Right.
reason I take Kennedy and Abraham because these are two events that again they're kind of weird, but they don't have really have did Abraham cause JFK's events to happen.
Right.
But their occurrence, the fact that they happened, it was seen by Young as having greater significance or meaning. And then here's something, a few examples more. Thinking about someone you haven't seen in years. When you suddenly start thinking about an old friend, and then out of the blue, they call and send you a message.
Okay,
That's
now that going back to like the book, The Secret, the Hermetic Laws, they call that the law of vibration.
right. So now you're getting more into the esoteric world. So okay, but I guess before we go there, this
So I'm
is
just labeling like your language the, of
right,
psychology, and I'm interpreting
right,
it
right.
through the Hermetic language.
But you see what Jung is trying to do. He's trying to
Yeah.
psychologize this because again, there's no religion. So he's trying to
Right.
explain this. Now in religion, okay, but going back to fate, you said fate and versus synchronicity. Are they the same? You
Yeah.
asked me, they're the same thing.
To do a
Um,
whole show on that.
uh, I would say, from Jung's point of view, or my point of view,
Do both. Give me both.
okay, Jung and fate. So
It's
Jung would
it's, it's only 740. Give me both.
so Jung using synchronicity would believe in fate. That means that nothing is a coincidence. And matter of fact, for example, you meeting your wife, that's not a cause and effect, right? That you were
Right.
meant to have that, and your mind constructs this meaningful connection. Because a lot of people say,
Right.
1 in a million. Imagine we could have, some people take a couple of things. One people will take, well, I caused this to happen because I went on a date, I put myself out there, and
Right.
I made this effect happen to be in a relationship and marriage. But then
Right.
others actually use synchronicity without knowing it. It was meant to be. It was fate, right?
Yeah.
It was meant to be. But again, but if you use philosophy, but what is meant to be? Like, what do you mean by that? And how can you
Yeah.
prove that? Right? That's a whole nother question. But so Jung would say, yeah, fate does exist, and actually, that's good. You're constructing your meaning of these two events that, at first glance, are not connected, but actually they are. They call it a synchronicity, like the Tao.
It's
Everything
almost
is,
like fate and synchronicity are one and the same in a way,
yes,
but
yeah,
but it has two meanings. Like Kennedy and Lincoln, it lines up so
well,
that's the greatest
no,
example.
and let me tell you, that proves again from science perspective, because I can tell you all sides. There's probability models. Probability will say, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Just because it landed that way, probability wise, it's like somebody that plays 5 roulettes. Of course, they're going to win on the fifth one. They play. That's not. That's not luck. They don't believe in luck. But in this case, it is odd because then the mind will start to create meaning out of this, right? And
Right,
and
right.
then this will lead to the connection of like everything is connected. And we are all part of the way, the Tao. See where he's heading towards
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
That everything,
yeah,
and he's going to come up with the collective unconscious. So nothing is a
yeah,
coincidence. Janet Kennedy and Lincoln were both figures of archetypal mythic legend. Both were
yeah.
connected somehow to a divine archetype. And this is where Jung's going to get really esoteric later on.
That's where the
But
archetype comes in.
right. And then me personally, for my take on fate, I actually do believe in fate. The missing ingredient is God, but I add also Aristotle. For example, like if someone asks me, like if I ask you, what is fate exactly? Because
Yeah,
that if you ask someone, they're gonna be like fate. Fate is they're gonna say coincidences. Okay,
right. They're not gonna,
no, they're not gonna know. And how does
Yeah,
something come like there are some oddities, and this is where I go against science. Science like to explain everything, reduce everything to science, but there
yeah,
are some things that you cannot explain. And actually, when it comes to like, let's say, like you said, like meeting your true love, course,
right.
you're gonna be falling in love with a lot of women, going out with a lot of girls, probably marrying maybe once or twice. Some people claim that
Yeah,
their marriages they found the one, and then
yeah, sure.
afterwards they say it was meant to be. Um, Meant to be. That's interesting, but why was it meant to be? But the missing
Yeah,
ingredient here is that, and again, God is the missing ingredient. So if I
yeah,
put God in the synchronicity question, that means that there is a divine order to the world. And actually it returns
right,
back to cause and effect. See, I don't think things are like a causal. Like I don't
right,
think
right,
I really like don't believe in that per se. But like I think that at the end of the day, it's God's providence. See, I add the religion
right.
element back because it is right. Nothing's meant to be. Things are to
Hmm.
be because of the person that says, I am Yahweh. So things
Yeah,
are as they are because of God. And if you trust in God, right, look what's going to happen. Everything you put your faith in God, God will give
right.
you your girl. God will provide,
Yeah,
right?
right,
So
right.
that's my
Having faith in God, a
right.
maker.
Instead of faith, I'm going to have faith. And as
Yeah.
George Michael saying,
Right.
because you gotta have faith, faith, faith. 'Cause you gotta like that. Well, that's what he's saying. That's what he said. Like you
Yeah,
gotta have
yeah,
faith instead. But
right,
but Young, again, he wasn't a Christian per se, but he was trying to return it back to Eastern principles
right, right.
that we are so obsessed with cause. Like, for example, like you could ask, well, why did this happen to Lincoln? You know how the human mind is obsessed with like trying to
Yeah,
explain a cause and effect relationship.
yeah, yeah,
And going back to your suicide example, right, that you mentioned before, someone
yeah.
what caused them to jump off the building? But what
Right.
if that
There's like
but
there's
what
a
so
cause like, oh,
according to well,
I want to
according to
end my
Young,
life.
right, but according to Young, that's the wrong question to ask.
What would you ask then? Why
So
would they jump off?
so they
Because the
they would
cause is like you jump off. Okay, the cause is something that's driven you to take your life by jumping off. Let's say the Empire State Building,
that's the
since it's in
cause
the
and
news.
effect, right? So the person said, I'm gonna jump, and people say, don't jump. Why did that
Right.
happen? Well, that happened because he lost his job, right, at the temple or something,
Yeah.
or got
Right.
yelled
Right.
at
Right.
by a
Right.
priest. Okay. But Young would say, no, but why did that happen? Why does
Right.
that happen? And matter of fact, he's not the only individual. Suicide is a synchronicity topic because it does happen. He would say that there's not really a causal thing to it, but it's
Yeah.
part of and again, he's going to go more in depth where there's darkness this is part of the darkness of the way, the darkness of, when
The
these things
build up.
manifest. Right.
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 So
So
let me ask you this: since we had a 2 hour conversation yesterday, and is it synchronicity? Because you led into something that I did not even know we were going to go into, and this is amazing. Lincoln and Kennedy might be the fucking coolest thing like we've ever done in this show. I got to say, I think I brought up John Kennedy yesterday. We were
right,
talking about something.
right.
Was that synchronicity? And
I
then you brought up
that that would be a great example. And actually going back to the suicide example,
yeah,
the guy that's jumping is a product of uh like when you look at like why he's jumping. A lot of
yeah,
people say he's killing himself because he's depressed, right?
right,
But if you take it's kind of using the Camus absurdism that
yeah,
maybe it is because, right? He hasn't created, he hasn't put together the meaning. Like he thinks, I lost my job. I gotta kill myself. No. So Jung and then going back to psychotherapy, he would use this with his patients.
yeah.
Is that you're looking for, you should look at these. Maybe you lost your job for a reason, right?
Maybe there's something better.
It's not a coincidence. That's what he was saying. And Frankel
Right.
actually is going to build on this later
Yeah.
on.
Or there was a reason why you lost your job for you to get a
Right,
better job,
right. And look
or
at this.
or 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 a woman, a lot of or a man,
Right.
relationships
And he
break
committed
up and
suicide because of the cause and effect. I lost my job. I'm gonna
right,
commit suicide. Or I lost my
yeah,
wife. I'm gonna shoot myself. Like,
right,
uh, and then
yeah.
going back to what you said about the Kennedy stuff. What did you say before? That was interesting.
Well, me and you were having a discussion,
Oh,
and
yes,
we
yes.
brought up
That's an example of synchronicity. Now it's returning. So that
because you brought up Lincoln, like, and I think you
I don't.
kind
I'll be
of
honest with you.
brought
I
it
don't know
up.
why. I don't know why.
Like,
I just
we
searched
didn't
up.
even we said that they were similar. We didn't go into all this crazy stuff. We said they were similar in their politics. With one was a Republican, one was a Democrat, but they wanted were very similar, and they both got killed for it.
Both got killed. Yep, they're kind of
That
like
was our conversation.
right.
You
But
know,
what's mysterious, and again, like when you look at these, that would be an example of Jung would say, I'll be honest with you, this is a synchronicity effect because JFK and Lincoln both were figures that were somehow connected. Now, look what I'm doing. I'm trying to do a cause and effect relationship, but uh perhaps it's not, it's a causal. And actually there's a bigger
yeah,
meaning. Like he's trying to change the language in thinking of this, trying to correct like um and again, look at the list. These are a list of the coincidences. Um Lincoln and Kennedy have 7 letters. I said that both were elected
right.
to Congress in 46. Both assassins, Booth and Oswald, were known by 3 names, each composed of 15 letters. Booth
Wow.
ran a theater and was caught in a warehouse. Good this. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theater. Both assassins were Southerners. Lincoln and Kennedy, again, were known concerned with civil rights, and actually they made their views strongly known. Both were shot on the head on Friday. Both had a secretary. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy. Look at this. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy who told him not to go to Ford's Theater. Kennedy had a secretary named Evelyn Lincoln, and she warned him not to go to Dallas. Both Oswald,
Oh no,
no,
this
no.
almost sounds fake. It
Both
almost sounds like
Oswald
it
and
made
Booth were
sense.
killed before they could be put on trial. Lincoln was killed in Ford's Theater, while Kennedy was killed in the car made by Ford Motor Company.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So okay, so let's take a look at this example because again,
But John Kennedy wasn't a vampire slayer.
yeah, that's true. That's true. John Kennedy was a womanizer. He was a player.
Yeah, he was. He had
My
Marilyn
yo,
Monroe,
my
man.
boy, dude. I know people hate on him for that. I
Oh,
give him that.
dude.
And his wife was beautiful.
Jackie Onassis,
Jackie
Jesus,
Kennedy. Yeah, she was. I'm surprised she cheated on her,
But
but
but Marilyn Monroe, what man is going to say no in
I know. And
1960 to
President of the
Marilyn
United
Monroe?
States, dude.
Come on,
Yeah. But yeah, dude.
I'll
So
keep my, you know, I'll keep the dice level down. We're serious scholars now. But yeah, so that is fucking insane. That's insane.
yeah.
It's almost like it's almost not real. But
Well,
it is,
well, and again, going back to the actually, it's really funny that I'm just pulling out the synchronicity song by the Police. Just listen to the synchronicity song because again, Sting says that all of this is um this meaningful coincidences that we are learning about is that the it's sort of like um it's not cause and effect. They do have meaning, and we're
Yeah.
gonna take a look at this. A causal, and again, and Sting sings here like if we share this nightmare, we can dream spiritus mundi, the spiritual world. If you act as you think, the missing link is synchronicity. It's this connecting principle. So is
Right. Right.
synchronicity another word for the Tao? Maybe. But I
Could
made
be.
that argument back in my Taoist when I took that Tao, the classic on the religion of the Tao, of Taoism. Um, and again, we know they know me as from the song, extrasensory synchronicity, a star fell, a phone call, it joins all synchronicity.
Wow.
So there is a connection here with Lincoln. Now I would say I would add like the God element because I think um, both men are sort of like martyrs for the
Yeah.
good, and both died for the good. Both had very numerological coincidences that I don't think is a
Yeah.
coincidence. It was definitely some sort of weird fate.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna throw this theory out there. I don't believe in this, or I do. I do believe in it too. I don't know how you feel about it. Could it be a reincarnation? Could Lincoln have been reincarnated as John Kennedy?
Which form of reincarnation? The classical one?
Um, I don't. Yeah, just like you die and then you become something else. I mean, I know, it's not. It's a not. It's an anti-religious thing. But a lot of people believe in that theory. Like when we die, we might come back as in another life. You might go into the past. I have a whole theory about it. You could go into the past and you can come back as Jimmy Page. You know what I mean? Or you could go into the future, or you could have really shitty luck and become a fucking, I don't know, an alligator.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
Or
would say for me, the simple answer is no.
right.
I don't believe in that. And also the
I,
classical idea of reincarnation is that it takes multiple lifetimes and you need to build up karma in the classical
right.
sense. Now, in the esoteric
Right.
sense, I don't know what they took from that, but no, I don't believe that. I think it's an example of things repeating themselves.
Yeah.
So Jung went crazy, like because then that would prove Jung's idea of the collective unconscious, that these things repeat themselves. I
Yeah.
would add that it's not that they were reborn, but both were by fate. And again, um, kind of odd that JFK was the Catholic in this example. Lincoln, I would
Yeah.
have to look more into I forgot what, obviously he was Christian, but
Yeah.
both were very unusual, mysterious men in a way too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both had this weird, unfortunate luck. Again, how do you explain this? I
Right. Right.
definitely think there's something divine in this, in their story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Um, and both were challenging a system that,
Time that was
again,
difficult.
who was against opposed them,
Yeah.
right? But I would back. It's not that they were reincarnated. I think think there are patterns that do repeat themselves.
Oh, and they're repeating now.
And
It doesn't end.
another example, a pattern repeated itself recently with Charlie Kirk,
Yeah.
where he
Yeah.
stood up against the masses. And what did they do?
Yeah.
They
You
assassinated
got
him in
yeah.
public. I wonder if there's going to be future coincidences with him, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing where its patterns are repeating themselves. And
Yeah.
then if you read Ecclesiastes in the Bible, Solomon teaches that we think that everything's new on the earth, when in actuality, for God, it isn't. Everything is repeating. So
Right.
this is an example of repeats. So it actually would prove Solomon's point that everything is cyclical, everything repeats.
So we've done this before.
Could be.
we're doing right now.
We met in another similar version of Cheech and Manny met in another lifetime.
Yeah. That's really fascinating.
Fascinating. And
Yeah.
Jung would say, yeah, that's synchronicity. That's that a now I think there is a causal. Jung would say it's a causal. There is these meaningful connections that you are constructing your meaning. And
Right,
actually
right.
it's more than coincidence. It's that meaning that
Yeah.
you construct that matters.
Now, would this be active imagination? I don't want to get too heavy into, you know, his.
No.
Oh, so that's a different from the Red Book. I was reading about
That
active imagination.
yeah, that's something else.
Okay, we won't. What I think I'm gonna do because I have a lot of before we even get into his life, like I have archetypes, phenomena. Why don't we do this when we do part two? We'll
Yeah.
get into our archetype. How do you say it? Archetypical phenomena. We could get into that
Archetypal.
next.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Archetypal phenomena. We could get into that next time, leading up to the show. To the main topic,
Right.
because with Young, there's so much. You can't just say one thing. You could say one thing and spend the whole show, a 3 hour show on one concept. You
Hmm.
can't do that with other people. You know, you can't really spend like Young is like he's like Rush. You can go hours and hours on one song and analyze that song. What we did, you know.
Right, right.
So,
And again, just before we move on, so synchronicity for now, psychologists replace that with confirmation bias. I don't know if you ever heard of that term.
oh, too modern for me.
Yeah, they replace it. So synchronicity, sadly, is not believed by psychology. Well,
What
I
happened
call,
to these modern day psychologists,
I know,
man?
man. I
They don't get
know.
it.
I know. And most scientists actually consider the idea that coincidences are meaningful. Consider the idea that the coincidence are mean. Again, Jung's idea was that these coincidences are meaningful, right? It's
Yeah,
not a coincidence. I'm sorry, it is a coincidence and they're meaningful. And but today scientists think that that's non-scientific. They replaced it with this idea of confirmation bias, that you seek out information to support your ideas and ignore information that challenges it. So that's the
yeah,
that was replaced by I think it was social psychology. But again, going back to this idea that of synchronicity, it's interesting. It's this idea that he was trying to come up with, that the uncanny coincidences or unlikely occurrence of parallel events. And he had
yeah.
more examples seeing repeating numbers, thinking about something
Right.
before it happens in real life. And you're gonna get a kick out of like the esoteric stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Hearing
yeah.
hearing a song that's relevant to what you're thinking. So like you're thinking about something and the song plays, dreaming about
Yep.
something specific that you then see repeatedly in your waking life, like dream of that girl that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
And why certain coincidences feel so meaningful? And that's what he was trying to get at. Like
Yeah.
why this is the
And,
case.
and and the crazy thing is, we've all experienced this as a human being.
Yes, yes. And again, his idea of the synchronicity, he was trying to understand these uncanny moments, like the Abraham Lincoln
Yeah.
and JFK,
Yeah.
without reducing them to pure coincidence. Now,
Yeah.
or avoiding elevating them to the paranormal. Like like the Amelia Earhart we had, or
Yeah.
some people will say, ah man, like you said, reincarnation. Yeah, I know that's not paranormal, but we're trying to
Yeah.
understand this.
Yeah.
Um,
Esoteric. Well, he does get into paranormal stuff, Carl Jung.
later,
He,
which
yeah.
we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
But that's what he says. And again, for me, I would correct it and say that I actually do believe in cause and effect. And I actually go back to, we have more time, I can explain to you like Aristotelian metaphysics, which is
Right. Right.
reason to understand first causes. You
Yeah.
got to start there. You start with what you see from the natural world. And then when you
Right.
get to
Right.
weirder stuff, right, you start to figure out if you add the God element back in. Again, everything is providential. It was meant that
Right.
JFK was going to get assassinated. And God, even because you see God's hands, you see clues.
Right. Right. Right.
Again, you see this all over, and without going too much time, you see this all over the place in the Gospels of Jesus in connection to the Old Testament.
Right.
Not going into too much
Wow,
detail, but yeah.
heavy. So what we'll do is we'll stop and we'll get into architect. Say it for me. Phenomena,
Archetypes. Wait, architectural phenomenon or archetypal? Archetypal or
archetypal.
archetypal? Yep.
Archetypal.
Yep, archetypal.
Phenomena.
Yep.
Our archetypal phenomena. That'll be on our next episode.
Yep.
We'll get into. We'll break it down like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
because like I'm down to do all night, but like I want to get into his biography and stuff. I thought like we would,
I
because
know, I
dude,
know.
Carl Jung, it ain't
No.
gonna be like one and
He's
done.
he's
It's just
thought provoking though. Well, that's the thing. Like when he was coming up with this stuff, you may be right. In the esoteric Gnostic world, Hermetic
yeah,
laws were already talking about this, right?
yeah.
But again, that's a rejection of Christianity. Christianity hunted them like crazy. So anyone that believed
Well,
these,
I'm thinking like a lot of Hermetic laws is studied in Freemason, Order of the Golden
right?
Dawn,
But they went against the
Rosicrucian.
Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church hunted them,
Yeah.
like anybody that
Oh
held
yeah, yeah, yeah,
heretical
yeah.
beliefs. So, but in the
Yeah.
psychology world, again, we're trying to understand this from a psychological perspective, from the mind
Right.
perspective. Young being an
Yeah.
analytical psychologist, this was never seen before. Like no one has really.
Yeah.
Now, the East was already philosophizing about, you know, the way of the world.
Yeah.
That in nature, there is not really a cause and effect. It's the way. And then Lao Tzu will try to.
Well, could they argue? That's a good point. Could they argue that? Okay.
That's Eastern philosophy. See,
A
they're not concerned with cause and effect.
a bird sees a worm and it's dinner. The bird's hungry and he eats the worm. There's the cause, there's the effect in nature.
You're seeing that, but nature is. That's the Tao.
That's just nature's.
You're
That's just
putting.
nature.
You're put. Okay, I don't agree with this, but I'm saying what the Taoists would say.
Right.
Well, I'm an amateur Taoist. I'm not a Taoist myself, but they would say no. You're putting that meaning on that. The bird is just is.
Right. 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 Right.
The bird is just living the way.
The way, and this way is to eat a worm.
It's hungry. It
Yeah.
feeds. You're putting
Right.
that
Right.
cause and effect
Right.
because
Right. So
you're
there's
trained in the Western mind of thinking.
exactly.
Western mind is obsessed with cause and effect relationships.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. Well,
Like when we see a man jumping off the Empire State Building. I don't know why we keep returning that idea, but when we see that man, we are obsessed. Like, why did he do it? But we don't ask. But we always say, why did he jump off the building?
yeah.
Right? Why did he do that? But we don't
Yeah.
ask him maybe how. Why would he not do that?
Yeah.
That would Camus ask, for example. Life is just so
Yeah.
horrifying.
Yeah.
How would he
Yeah.
not do that? Or how could he do that?
Right. Right.
Right? You
Right.
ask the wrong questions.
Yeah. That's fascinating,
And I'm
man.
not saying it's wrong to ask, like, why would he do that? It's just I'm showing you the different modes of thinking.
Right.
Remember,
It's
you ever seen those movies, especially like Kill Bill or like The Karate Kid, when they're getting trained by the Asian martial arts master?
oh yeah. Yeah.
Let me give you an
Yeah.
example. In the even though it's a little comedic, in The Karate Kid, remember he's cleaning his car, and he's
Wax
obsessed.
on, wax
Yeah,
off.
yeah, and he's obsessed with the cause and effect. The kid, why am I doing this? I don't understand. Just he's learning this. Don't ask why. Just do. You're learning discipline.
Yeah.
Even though he's
That's
clearly taking
right.
advantage of the kid. But
No, but that
no,
that
no,
movement is a part of
right.
karate. He's
That's what
learning. He's
that
also learning a
right.
technique.
And think about your like here's another example. You see this all the time in musicianship, where you as a bass player, you're able to see
Yeah.
these patterns outside of yourself. And you see
Yeah.
musical patterns, you're seeing these wider patterns. See, that's another example of a synchronicity. I'm gonna make a word, but synchronitical effect. I made
Yeah.
that word up, but it's like, man, like like for example, bass playing and like everything makes sense when you're playing bass. So you apply that in the
Right.
real world and things work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I apply it at the existential vacuum. When I set my case up, I look at it as a creative thing. And I've said that to manage, and they look at me like, no, what are you doing? I'm like, You're just setting something up. I'm like, no, I'm setting it up in a creative way
Right,
to
right,
look good,
right. And
to
it's sort
look,
of,
to look.
it's like you tuning your bass.
It's my art. You know what I mean? I'm just
Right,
not throwing shit together.
right, right.
I mean, and and that's what I do every day to make me get through that day. I got to be creative. I got to make sure it looks good. I got to make sure
Yeah.
that
But you
like,
see, that would be that nothing to do with synchronicity, but I'm more of the Tao. Like you just do. Like music
yeah.
is very like when you're in the zone, bass playing, you get lost.
Oh,
You're
of
another
course.
in a way, you become another person. See it's a very
Oh, yeah, yeah,
interesting
yeah. Yeah. Oh,
um
yeah.
because when you get into mute, you're entering a new sort of and you may ask why. Why you
Yeah.
entering? I'm not asking why. I'm just playing, man. I'm just gonna play them. Let's feel it. Rock and roll is like
Yeah.
it's for like Taoist principles
It's true.
because they don't spend years trying to learn musical theory. Most just do. And now once you learn
Yeah.
music theory, once you learn the basics, like the Karate Kid, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
the cleaning, then you're able to
Yeah.
master complex martial arts, and you have
Right.
discipline.
That's true. Makes sense. Amazing. Thank you, John Kennedy in Lincoln,
Hey,
man.
rest in
This is
peace.
like, you know,
I know.
God,
I know.
two
Wait, so
great,
now
great
biography.
presidents. Yeah. Now
Okay,
we'll jump into the biography.
let's see.
Okay.
Who is Carl Gustav Jung?
Yeah. So now we got one principle, which is insane that the guy is
I,
like
dude, I
fucking
did a
genius.
project, dude. I did a project on this, connecting it to the Tao and optimal experience.
Wow. I
Yeah.
studied the Tao. I had a great book on Taoism, and I studied Lao Tzu, eh, probably in my 30s. And then Wayne Dyer, the great New Age guy, he did a whole series on it, and he broke it down in layman's terms, you know. And I studied his book on the Tao like insane, and I would practice because the Tao is just little 3 or 4 lines, and there's like numbers like basically it's not like a whole storybook, and I would try to memorize and apply that to my life every day. A new I don't know what it's called, like not a quatrain or something, but the way the Tao is written.
Mm.
But I recommend Wayne Dyer's interpretation of the Tao. And he was so into the Tao, he got everything that he owned and he just got rid of it.
Mm.
And he lived on a beach in Hawaii and he studied the Tao for about a year. That guy is like a modern day genius. I don't even know if he's still alive, but Wayne Dow, or I recommend people read his
Mm.
stuff. Really, really amazing. Anyway, okay. Born Carl Gustav Jung, 1875, in Caswell, Switzerland. His dad's interesting. We're talking about him. His dad is Paul, I love his middle name, Achilles Young, and Amelia Young. The name Amelia, is that a coincidence?
Right?
Uh, his father was a pastor. His dad was a pastor, and this might take us, into another realm. In the Swiss Reformed Church.
Mhm.
What is a Reformed Church?
So what it's a Protestant church. It's not
Okay,
Catholic.
okay,
It's not Catholic.
right,
And it sounds like, yeah, it's like a Protestant church. Very
right.
Christian, but no Catholic stuff.
Okay, okay. Um, so,
And obviously when it says reform is that they broke off from another Protestant church. And you ever heard like the Dutch Reformed Church or whatever? Like,
yeah,
uh,
each
yeah.
country has their own. Okay, this is interesting. He considered his father a reliable but a weak and powerless man. Um, he had 8 uncles that were all clergymen, and he considered his mother unreliable and inconsistent, um, which made him think women were unreliable. And he didn't view women highly because of
Mm.
his mom and his dad. It's like his parents weren't like his role models, which is odd for a kid. You would
Right.
think like, oh, your parents. So right there, his brain is on another wavelength, the way he's thinking as a child.
Right, right.
Um,
That's interesting. And um and actually going back to the Swiss Reformed Church idea, it's a Protestant denomination led by Zwingli and Zurich and John Calvin. So this is one of the original OG Protestant
Calvinist,
churches.
Calvinism.
Very, very original. Um but yeah, very Christian though. Bible alone.
Yeah,
Um they
standing, the guys standing on a platform and just kind of, preaching away. That kind of like you would see the Pilgrims do back in the day.
right,
Those kind
right,
of churches.
right, right. Yeah, so it's like Calvinistic. But yeah, so Protestant church, and you said the mom wasn't that
Oh,
trustworthy.
the mom is nuts. The mom is where I think Carl Jung, because Carl Jung was considered nuts by Freud. Freud had an opinion that Carl Jung had some issues, and that was also a part of the split too, which you probably know. So okay, this might open up a huge can of worms and take us down a path. Some say his real father was Johann Wolfgang von Goth.
Goethe.
Now, Goethe. I'm sorry, Goethe. Now that is you heard that theory. We talked about it a little bit, and that was his grandfather supposedly, and he used that in college. That he said it was true. I guess to try to get like a name for himself. Now I'm familiar with his work, but I'm not heavily familiar with it too much. Um, but his mom was a depressed woman, eccentric. She stayed in her bedroom most of the time.
Mm.
She obviously was crazy. She said spirits would visit her at night. She was normal during the day, but at night became strange. Carl Jung said he saw apparitions coming from her room, one with their head detached from the body. Um, and he had a better relationship with his father. His mom was in and out of the hospital for a long time, and Young lived with his aunt for a while, and well, when he attended elementary school, but was very unhappy. So, how do you feel about this mom
Well,
influence on him
going back to
and
the
him seeing his
going back to how you claim Goethe was his father?
grandfather?
Interesting because okay, so Johann Wolfgang von I think it's Goethe, Goethe,
Yeah,
is famous for being the German Shakespeare. So he was like
right.
the equivalent. And actually he was like for German literature, like he was the foundational figure.
Yeah.
And the Western world's greatest polymath. He mastered every genre, also from poetry, drama to novel. He also like such a revolutionary author. He's famous for the masterpiece of Faust. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
his manic
That one I've read.
magnus
I've
opus,
read some. I've
a
read some of that.
two-part dramatic poem, one of the most important German plays ever written. The Deal with the Devil, a Faustian devil, as the Faustian
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
So he's famous. It's kind of funny how he's claiming this. So obviously there's some shame, I guess.
I
And
don't know how this theory even came out. I mean, it's you could Google, you could AI it or whatever, look it up on sites. It's there
okay,
that and I think you told me you heard that rumor as well.
yeah, I don't know where I got it, but yeah, this dude is a genius. I mean, he's writing in like, between the ages of 1749 and 1832. So obviously, he had a huge influence. Um, Arthur Schopenhauer respected him, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Um, he knew he did a lot of things, but he
Yeah.
was famous for writing Faust.
Yeah,
And
which I read some of that. I was
right,
back in the day.
it's like an unsatisfied scholar who makes a wager with the devil
Yep.
and explores, the connection between like, ambition, morality.
Yeah.
It's sort of like similar to like Robert Johnson making that deal with the devil. It kind of is another
Exactly.
pattern that repeats itself. It's a play. It's very
Yeah.
famous. And that's where the idea of making a Faustian devil Faustian deal or pact
Right. Right.
came from.
Yes.
And we have the famous the devil Mephistopheles, the devil.
Hmm.
Uh, and then
Right.
so very interesting if this is true, how he kind of made up, he obviously because he wanted to be associated with the greatness of German, like, and actually Hegel. So at this time, dude, Germany was producing insane giants. Hegel,
Yeah.
philosophy, Goethe, and literature.
Yeah.
Uh, Sigmund
Schopenhauer.
Freud,
Yeah.
Schopenhauer,
Yeah.
eventually Friedrich Nietzsche is going to come out of Germany.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's interesting how he made that, was he ashamed of his dad, right? Or ashamed of his family? And then his mother that
Yeah.
seeing these like paranormal activity
Yeah.
stuff and that he claimed that he saw.
Yeah. He said he's seen it. Yeah.
I wonder if that
As a
was right.
kid,
I do wonder, what do you think about that? Do you think what was wrong with her, you think?
I think either she had you ever see the movie The Winchester House?
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
That's
that kind of a
creepy.
that's a great movie. It's a great concept
No,
too.
but that house is
Um
creepy.
yeah. Oh, the way it's built. And there was something, I mean, we should do an episode on Halloween on her
Dude, we gotta
because
do that. Dude, the Winchester rifle. But dude, another synchronicity. But dude, before I forget, like, because we were talking about like weapons and assassinations, but
yeah.
what's interesting about Carl Jung's mother, what I'm getting here is that she was also deeply spiritual woman, and suffered depression, which I'm not sure why. If you have anything in your notes, um,
No.
she had these weird mystical and occult stuff happening to her,
Yeah.
and apparently also got it frequently acting as a medium during seances. And then this dual nature obviously influenced Jung's early psychological exploration of the unconscious, and
Oh,
most
so
likely,
she was a medium in seances.
according to this, and so she had these weird psychic experiences. Now, her father was a theologian, right? Um,
Yeah.
Now I have here that he claimed to speak to the dead. So that's another interesting
Huh.
thing.
So
And
maybe she
so
had that
and get
Winchester thing
right and
going
get
on
this.
where spirits followed her.
So Freud came up with the Oedipal complex, or Electra. Carl Jung, out of this experience, ends up formulating the mother archetype. And he
Right.
viewed the mother archetype as a dual force capable of intense nurturing, but also terrifying destructiveness, chaos. So look at how this kind of influencing his and she was
And
institute good.
she was institutionalized, but who
Oh,
thinks of their mother like that?
it's interesting.
Nobody.
Well, and it's thinking because again, he came up with the mother archetype, which actually is
Yeah.
famous. Dr. Jordan Peterson kind of elaborates the mother archetype that it
Yeah.
offers nurturing love, but the smothering love is also destructive. Like the kid
Dude,
that
hold on 1 second. I just got to turn this air off. I'm freezing my you know what's off. Sorry.
how good?
Okay. Yeah. So she was institutionalized. So she either was a medium and had that power and brought in spirits around her, and
Mm.
maybe young, because not everybody can see ghosts. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like there's that whole theory.
let's say this is true. Because then this
Right.
is interesting. She was seeing stuff. Now, one theory could be demonic stuff.
Yeah.
Um, because the one that you said that the
The
night when
guy had no head.
Right,
There
because
was one spirit with no head,
well, I have a couple theories. Either she was mentally sick, because I heard apparently like a Sid Barrett-like character, because she was eccentric, depressed woman. Like you said, she spent a lot of considerable time in her bedroom, where she
Yeah,
claimed spirits visited her. And then, like you said, Young recalled that at night his mother became strange and mysterious. And he claims that one night he saw a faintly luminous and indefinite figure coming from her room with a head detached
yeah,
from the neck and floating in the air in front of the body. That's interesting
right.
too. What was happening with the mother? What was she experiencing? Um, Very mysterious
I know.
because this
Or
is,
is this just an overactive imagination on a creative man?
yeah, 100%. But what's odd, we're going to be talking about the Red Book. You're going to see these interesting depictions of, and sometimes they're kind of creepy. Like what,
Oh yeah.
there was something going on there, some tap into the paranormal. We call it the paranormal.
Yeah. Well, also he wrote his. I'm jumping ahead, but he wrote his first real, I guess, doctrine or whatever on a medium, his cousin.
Well, now you know why.
Yeah, yeah. So he had an interest
It,
in it.
it was,
So I mean, his mom, we don't know. We don't know if she is really a whack job or like like Mrs. Winchester. But Mrs. Winchester is different because there's angry spirits after her because her husband invented a gun, or you know what I mean, and did damage to these people.
right,
But with Mrs. Young, maybe it's just she was a medium, and they
right.
and I've talked to people that are mediums and even the Warrens' grandson and stuff, and like once they clear out a house or talk to the dead, there's rituals and cleansings and stuff you got to do if you really believe in it, or they're going to stay attached,
Well, and it's
you
interesting
know.
because in adding Catholic theology, because you and I are Catholic, it would one big explanation, she was possessed, the poor woman, and she needed an
Could have been.
exorcism. She was possessed, and Jung was open to the spiritual. He knew.
And it makes sense because if you're over religious, the father's a pastor, Satan's going to be lurking around the
Oh,
corner.
right, and he's following the Lutheran tradition, which broke away from the Catholic tradition, especially with John
Yeah,
Calvin. And you're right, Bible alone, Bible fearing dude. Ironically, bad spirits entering his household.
yeah,
And Young, I think this affected him because it left. That's why he always respected. He wanted to believe in religion, but at the same time, he was a man of science. So he was
yeah.
like, "Ah, I want to believe
So
in stuff."
he had that
He had that.
spiritual thing.
He was kind of like, I don't know. I'm gonna try to explain it psychologically. And in the
I
Red Book,
think I think she was dabbling, you know, with the occult, the mother, with the, being a medium, and I think it had effects on her.
which I think she called a bad spirit.
Yeah, yeah. It's like she must have, if she was
He,
an amateur medium, and she picked up something that wouldn't, maybe followed her around and came out at night, and he had that ability to see things too,
right.
like maybe the gift that the mother had. And being in such a religious household, it fed the beasts, you know. There's interesting theories that were coming up with the mother. Um, but yeah, she was and definitely put away. Um, so when she was put away, his dad wasn't around and he lived with his aunt and he went to elementary school. Now this gets interesting. Um, so let me get into this. So as a young boy, he got pushed by another boy and he hit his head hard and fainted. They thought he had an epileptic seizure, and for a while he was fainting. He just kept fainting. He would be in
Yeah, he had
this,
that cause a concussion and seizures.
yeah, and he would faint. Uh,
And think about that effect of the seizures on his psyche.
Yeah,
Gonna
I
cause him
know.
to
Well,
be a little loose in the head.
right. And it may have helped his genius
I
even
would,
more.
yeah, even though he
Well,
probably was eccentric himself, because we said we're gonna look
yeah.
at the Red Book stuff, very occulty, mystical type, which is interesting.
Oh yeah. And they thought he had epilepsy, and then when he was gonna faint, he forced himself and he learned not to faint. And he said this is his first um feeling of neuroses um that he had, like when he felt he felt he learned neurosis by learning how not to faint anymore. Like trying to, that's got to be an awful feeling.
Hmm.
I've only I almost fainted one time. You ever, like, I mean, obviously blacking out and with alcohol is different, but like when you have you ever had not enough sleep and they literally, it's a blackout. Like I was up one time 27 hours, and I remember exactly where it was. I was on my front porch and I saw literally black for about 2 seconds. And then I caught myself and I'm like, oh my God, like what if I let it go, I would have passed out. I would have fainted.
Hmm.
So I never had that. My mom said she fainted once when she was pregnant. And she just said you don't remember. It's like you just fell asleep and then you wake up. So that's got to be like scary for a kid. Um, so he decided he was going to follow his father's footsteps and his eight uncles that were all into that. But then he started to study it, and I guess he found it BS, and his brain was like way. Imagine if he was a preacher, a born, like with all that brain knowledge he has. Um, so he wanted to be an archaeologist. Um, so he was going to college, and he got into college, but the university didn't have. It was called the University of Basel. They didn't have archaeology, so he wanted to study psychiatry and medicine. And this interest was captured by his interest in biology and the spiritual part. Okay. Then at 17 and 18, right before college or during college, he studied philosophy and he studied the Greeks. Pythagoras,
Hmm.
Heraclitus, um, was his favorite. uh Maybe I'm saying this guy's, I'm bad with these names. Empedocles, Herapedocletus. Empedocles. You ever hear that guy?
No.
Yeah, he's obviously Plato. Then Schopenhauer, through his world as will, an idea. Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason,
Hmm.
and Faust, which is Goethe. How do you say his last name?
Goethe,
Goethe,
Goethe, I think.
Goethe. Yeah, and he studied Faust and Meister Earnhardt, Meister Eckhart, Eachart. Um, Now this is weird. So at this point, he started to believe he had two personalities. A modern day Swiss citizen was one personality, more, suited in the time he lived, personality number one. And then personality number two was a dignified, authoritative, and influential man from the past and is unconscious. So that's what he believed he had. He had like two personalities.
at that time.
Yeah, or maybe the rest of his life. Who knows? So he had some really interesting like thoughts and stuff.
Interesting.
Like, yeah. Okay. So he studied medicine at the University of Basel. Then his father died and left the family nothing. They had no money. So he got help from relatives to pay for his schooling. And then in school, he would tell the I can't like this is like my hors d'oeuvres. How do you say is Gauthier? Gauthier?
Gertha?
Goth?
Gertha.
I can't. You cut out. I didn't hear you.
Gertha.
Goethe. Why can't I say Goethe?
I
Goethe.
think I think that's how you
Um,
pronounce it.
he when he was in college, he told people that's his grandfather.
Mm,
And the kids, and at that time, that dude was probably like, fucking, um, that guy was probably like Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean
right, right,
to those students, and they're like,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know Jimmy Page is my uncle. Yeah, yeah, whatever. They probably thought he was crazy. Um, so then he decided to get into psychology. He was influenced by Freud's contemporary. And I think I texted this to you the other day. Theodore Flournoy.
Flournoy, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess he was up against Freud. They were like
Freud,
in the
Freud,
same.
Freud's contemporary, yeah. He's sort of like interesting dude on parapsychology and spiritism.
Oh, so there we see now it's starting to make sense.
Yeah,
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know nothing about that guy.
yeah.
Um, Now here we go. Jung wrote his doctrine thesis on spiritualism, focusing on a young medium, his cousin. I want to look this girl up. Helen Pressrack, whose seances would have tables turning that he attended and voices and scrapings on the wall. And he wrote a paper and called it The Psychology and Pathology of So-Called Occult Phenomenon. 1903 it was published. That's his first paper.
It's
That's
these,
like some Crowley shit right there.
yeah.
Like I could totally see. And we won't even get in. We won't. Every episode I bring up Crowley, but Crowley was. I wrote a whole other topic out. Crowley was inspired by Jung. The whole episode.
Hmm.
Um, so he gave up medicine and chose to become a psychiatrist after reading. This is the guy I texted to you. Richard von Kraft Ebbings. You ever hear of him?
Yes, the textbook of psychiatry.
Yes, that's
Yes.
the book. Yeah. Damn, you know your stuff, Manny. You you
Yeah, and the
you
video
know
you
your
sent me was
stuff.
interesting too. I mean, the
Yeah.
psychiatrist of his fat. Remember, he's studying psychiatry,
Right.
so he does his very interesting. Like, yeah, you're right. Very Crowleyan thing to make a doctoral thesis on like seances and table turnings. Like,
It's almost like people aren't going to take. Well, at the time,
at the
this
time,
is
they were taking
early
that seriously. And Theodore Flournoy
1900s.
and Freud with hysteria, they were trying to understand like what is
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah, there was a spiritual movement from Madame Blavatsky in the 1840s to the Fox sisters to the 1880s,
Right.
1890s,
Right.
and
No,
people were going to
but
seances and
But no,
having
but
their
no,
palms
no, and
read.
back this time, like they were doing research into like hypnotism,
Oh
electromagnetism,
yeah.
magnetism as well. Like they were like
Yeah.
looking at this behavior and like really getting fascinated by it and like trying to understand it. Now, a lot of it kind of was a sham, but they were taking
Oh
it,
yeah. A lot of
they
people.
were they were taking it seriously. And so obviously with the spiritualism that Jung does his doctoral thesis. It's fascinating. It's trying to understand like the occult phenomena.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and he's in medical school, and like you said, he's going to specialize in surgery, right? I don't know if you were there, but It's interesting that he
Yeah,
read the textbook of psychiatry, so he decided to become a psychiatrist, which is
yeah. By reading the Kraft Ebbings, Richard von Kraft Ebbings, that
Mhm.
was like they changed everything for him.
Yeah.
Um, and then he got his degree and he started to work at, I'm not even know how to pronounce this part of Switzerland, Berg Psychiatric Hospital under psychiatrist Eugene Bueller. Um, and now you heard of Bueller, right?
Hmm.
Okay. I don't know much on him, but he seems very interesting. They started to study dementia, and then from that, they got into the study of schizophrenia, a term Bueller came up with, and he was interested in neurosis in young, especially with psychotic patients, and that would become a primary concern for the rest of his career. He also studied the complex, and he became a doctor at this medical facility in Zurich.
Hmm.
So this is interesting to me. All this stuff we're talking about, uh, spirituality, seances, and they're studying schizophrenia. That alone, you know, you could back then look at somebody and say, "Whoa, what's, this guy's going through this whole thing, hearing voices, and what's this about?" Because that was kind of new. Before that, they just locked you away and were like, that there's something wrong here. And dementia, I didn't even know they even considered that at that time.
Well, little correction though. What you're talking about is so um they're not talking about the dementia that we're talking about today. That was their
Okay.
it was called dementia praecox,
Okay.
and that was schizophrenia, their old word for it. That was what
Oh,
that
okay,
was
okay.
what Bleuer kind of came up with.
So Bueller's the one that really
It
identified
was
schizophrenia as a disorder of the mind.
yes, that needed psychiatric attention.
And this is before medicine.
Oh no, this is during medicine.
Oh, they had prescriptions and stuff for people back
Oh,
then?
you're talking about like pharmacy? Yes, yeah, this is way before. So psychiatrists would try to help the patient, using a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at psychiatry at the time, it's kind of scary.
I mean, but that's a tough one to help somebody with back then.
Yeah, especially at that time.
I know. When all this other shit's going on with occult stuff and um but it's just fascinating how people got that shit even back then.
Right. And remember, we're like
No.
psychiatrists were trying to understand like biologically how to help these individuals.
Yeah.
And psychiatry, remember, before the pharmaceutical industry, right? Before psychiatry started using medicine,
Yeah.
psychiatry was first of all heavily biologically focused. Like
Yeah.
biology was a huge thing. So you needed to open up someone's brain, understand what's going on inside at
Yeah.
their time. Institutionalization was also a big thing. So if we had a
Oh,
dement,
insane
oh,
asylums they
we
called
call
them
them
back
we
then.
call them insane asylums. But yeah, dude, like and mind you, these are not like today's.
What is what's that great movie with oh God, I should be shot. The great actor from the Titanic. Help me. The guy in the Titanic movie, the kid, the main guy.
Leo DiCaprio.
You ever see that movie where he investigates an insane asylum?
Yeah, Shutter Island.
Yeah. Oh my God, that movie's great.
Yeah,
That
I
shows
have to rewatch that movie.
what was going on. But that was a little later. That was more in the 20s, I think, or
Much
the
later.
30s.
Yeah, I mean, still wasn't
Yeah.
better,
So
but a lot of like
no.
weird stuff. We have like the Kaiji is
Yeah.
very different from what it is today.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
the psychiatrist in that island was so evil too. They were all fucked up.
right. It'd be interesting to see Psychiatry, but again, if we look at what they were doing, it's like very, but again, there was an emphasis on like, biology. Like it was huge. And asylum
Yeah.
care was key. And we're looking at severe condition. Again, what a psychiatrist dealt with was psychosis and mania and like dementia
Yeah.
praecox, like what we say what today is schizophrenia. And
Yeah.
then treatment was
Like
brutal.
lobotomies
Dude, well
like lobotomies and
that's during, but yeah, dude, we had asylums, we have um brutal restraints, uh you know,
going into the skull with like drilling into the brain. They would do
that
experiments. Like neurologists would do that.
yes, yes. Um,
I don't know what they were looking for at that point. Like I don't know what with it, you know.
you know what's funny? These treatments were insane because you had ice baths, induced vomiting, early forms of shock therapy. And you know who revolutionized all this was Sigmund Freud in psychoanalysis
Yeah.
because he saw these symptoms like the nervous disorder, like so typically saw
Yeah.
he began sort of like you know utilizing early hypnosis and talk therapy. Instead, let's talk.
Over this.
You know how today we like you like that Robin Williams movie with the psychiatrist talking. See
Yeah.
that what
Yeah.
that wasn't a thing back then.
Right. Right.
So what Young was seeing again, he was like watching all this. Um, but the psychotic patients are going to become his primary concern for the rest of his career.
Right. Holy shit. Okay. Um. So yep. That's what I got there. Okay. Moving forward. So in 1904, with Franz Ricken, he published Diagnostic Association Studies. Mr. Freud got a copy of it and he really liked it. And that's when he got Freud's attention. And at this point, Jung started a private practice. This is interesting, the next fact that I had no idea. By 1903, he could have just been a regular psychiatrist and worked in a hospital
Mm-hmm.
because he literally I don't know the synchronicity but he hit lotto. This guy hit lotto on this one. I don't know if people talk about this much, but he married Emma uh,
Emma
Rauschenbach. Yeah,
Rauschenbach.
she was her family owned a international watch company. Young became a shareholder in the company. So this lady was filthy rich. The
Right,
family was loaded. Emma fell in love with him. She loved him so much and his work. She started to study psychology
right.
and she wanted to become a psychologist. They had 5 children, but, and this, I find this funny, he did mess around with his patients.
Right.
With, which is like being messed up, you know what I mean? Like
It
these
is,
poor
yeah.
people, him and Freud, supposedly.
Yeah.
So they say. I mean, they can't like. I don't know. You can't really prove that. I don't want to like
Right, right.
say
Yeah.
that.
You know, it's funny. I have here that Jung confided in Freud that he had polygamous components in himself. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you're in a situation where you have vulnerable people
Right,
that are not all there in their head, and they need help, and they're going to come to you as their help, and you're just taking advantage of them,
right.
and it's kind of it's messed up,
A-
you
And he
know.
also said the prerequisite of a good marriage this is what he told Freud. It seems to me is a license to be unfaithful.
And he nailed it on that one. I think that makes a good marriage. My opinion. I don't know. Uh, I've always been. I've been the faithful bastard. You know what I mean? I never cheated ever.
You know what's
But
funny? Like, why? It's interesting why you would cheat on Emma Young. I mean, money. It doesn't seem
Oh
ugly.
yeah. I
Um,
never saw what you look like.
5 children. I mean, that is a lot.
Yeah. And he was a stockholder. So
Yeah.
by 1903, this dude was a millionaire,
Right.
equivalent to,
And both her and Freud, I'm sorry, him and Freud had these relationships. But you're right. I think it's pretty easy to understand that when the vulnerable get presented to you, like let's say a vulnerable girl to a guy, guys can use that
yeah.
vulnerability to take
Oh,
advantage sexually.
they still do it. They
And it's
still,
hard to today in today's psychological practice, that is a big no-no. You're gonna get your license taken away.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's why a
severe.
lot of these girls that were runaways and stuff got involved in adult movies,
Yes, yes,
drugs,
yes.
groupies.
Yes, I
Let's
know.
say
I
we
don't know
know
how
a
you
lot.
feel. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's yeah,
Say
most
it
of these
again.
people, huh?
You cut out for a second.
No, most of these people, you're right. Those are the girls that have psychological problems. Instead of going to Young and Freud and in porn movies, Jugs magazine, like
Exactly. Or rock stars like
right.
certain members of our favorite bands.
Groupies, right? Let's be honest,
Yeah,
those chicks
yeah.
were damaged in the head.
Oh yeah, there was like they were runaways. They were misfits. The parents were. It's not their fault. The parents were probably no good, and they got into the wrong hands. Still going on and today, and it'll never go away. You're always gonna see that.
An interesting
But
relationship that he had was with, I don't know if you ever in the notes, with Sabina Spielrein.
no,
So Russian, so kind of like Ayn Rand, Russian physician,
yeah,
and by the way, one of the first female psychoanalysts. She was in succession the patient, get this, then student, then lover of Carl Jung. Yeah,
man, he was like a rock star.
my boy would do. He's like the rock star, man. And this dude also she had a relationship with Sigmund Freud too. It says
Oh,
friend, but maybe she was involved.
he was the Lori Maddox, man. They were throwing her around like a groupie, man.
Hell yeah. Like this is like the intellectual like groupie here.
Wow. But back then, that's how I don't think wives looked at it like it was a bad thing back then, if they even found out about it. 'Cause
Mm,
all those guys cheated on their wives back
right.
in the day. And then we're talking the day, in the 20s and 30s. This is 1903, so
Yeah.
even before that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Jung and Freud started to become good friends, and he showed Freud Bueller's work on schizophrenia, and he was impressed. Um, Jung used Freud's psycho analysis, and it gave him attention. Jung was now gaining international recognition with his research. So him and Freud became friends, and Freud took him under his wing, and they would go and lecture together. And they came to the States.
Yep.
They came to Massachusetts, and Freud gave Jung the International Psychoanalytical Association. He was president of that for 2 years. Freud and Jung would meet William James, the father of American psychology. Then that's when the break happened, and Jung had a breakdown over the split with Freud. So, where was I? Okay, yeah. So, any questions on that? So, what I did now because I didn't know how to like do this because this dude is so heavy. I just broke down a quick timeline of his life before we dive into the insanity of Carl Jung.
Yeah.
You know, so
And
we'll
tonight's
go back.
episode is basically ending on the biography. Before we go,
Yeah,
each
yeah,
episode will take a
yeah,
look at different concepts.
yeah. Because I have like the Freud, but we won't get into Freud because it's going to be, well, it's too heavy. Because he goes back and forth with Freud over like what we talked about, over the animal instinct in the man, that kind of stuff. So his timeline, we could end it here if we want. His career involved from classical psychology to the creation of analytical psychology. Early career, 1900 to 1906. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. The Bushhole Hospital. He worked with Eugene
Yep.
Bueller in Zurich, like Ferris Bueller. Um, he got the he he worked with skit. He developed what is this? Word association developed tests to uncover subconscious complex. So I
Hmm.
guess he was studying the complex at this point. He did schizophrenia research um, and psychological concepts to explain psychotic symptoms. The Freud era, close collaboration began with Sigmund Freud, um, chosen to be his successor as a student. He got the IPA leadership, served as first president in International Psychological Association. Then the breakup and split with Freud over sexual theories of the libido. That was the whole thing. Um, 1913 to 1918, the confrontual external intense personal psychological crisis he had. Then he put all that into the Red Book and documented his vivid waking visions and dreams. 1919 to 39, psychological types introduced introversion versus extroversion in the four functions. And I'm just naming a couple things here. Global travel. He studied indigenous cultures in Africa, America, and Asia. And that's the anthropology piece, right? Right there.
Mhm.
Core concepts, and we'll just name them. We don't, define collective and consciousness and archetypes. Um, Later years, this is interesting. He got into alchemical studies, linked
Yeah.
medieval linked medieval alchemy to this word I'm gonna mess up. Individuation. Individ. I can't even speak. Individuation.
Oh, so individuation.
Individuation, yeah. So he linked medieval alchemy to the individuation process. What's that about?
Oh, dude, we'll save it because you're gonna love the alchemy stuff. Dude, he got everything down to
Like I didn't even put that in as a like heavy. I gotta circle that like as like I put collective consciousness and the shadow and
the
all that.
alchemy is a whole nother he used remember alchemy, right?
Oh yeah, definitely,
He
yeah.
tried also applying those principles in psychology.
I quick story. I got an F in a class in college. Um, because the teacher was such a douchebag. It was it was a math class and it was cool. It had a cool name. It was like math, but like the history of math, so Pythagoras and science and math together. You ever hear what a truth table is? We did
Yeah.
these things called truth tables. And the teacher was this egotistical piece of fucking shit, basically. So I was like doing bad in the class, but I did my final paper on Newton. And Isaac Newton was a full-blown alchemist.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. Everybody fucking knows that, right? I have books on the guy. I wrote a whole thing about Newton and alchemy, and obviously Isaac Newton being one of the greatest scientists, it's an insult that, to the guy, right? To people that are science. This guy ripped me a new asshole, gave me like an F, called me in his office. He's like, "How dare you insult the greatest scientist by calling him an alchemist? That's the dark arts. I know you're into heavy metal. You got your facts wrong." I showed him the book. He's like, "Well, that book is bogus, and you probably plagiarized it." All this shit. The guy failed me. I took it up with the dean and stuff, and they're like, you got valid points. I end up getting a C in the class, but this guy was like wanted to kill me because I called Newton an alchemist.
And he
And I'm like,
was, and he was a believer in God.
yeah. And this guy was like, those are just rumors. That's not true. He did not, because alchemy was a dark art.
No,
It
it
was
was
not,
no, it wasn't
at that
dude, no,
time.
no, it wasn't even a dark art. It was a legitimate study. And um now I think what he's mad about that he thinks is a primitive science. Um, but what's interesting, we can have another episode on this, is how alchemists is interesting. If you look at alchemy, this was the science of, for example, one of their preoccupations, and Isaac Newton too, was trying to change an element to another element.
Yeah, yeah. And this
And
this guy wouldn't accept that. It was
he's
like insulting
he's an idiot because, and again,
at the time.
just to give you a taste of like an idea here, like you said, it's like alchemists projected what Jung thought. If you look at alchemy textbooks and Newton too, they were projecting their unconscious thoughts onto physical matter. And then usually they made their
Yeah,
text illustrations profound metaphors for the individuation process, the individual, the journey toward
yeah,
psychological wholeness and self-realization. And so, like, if you look at
right,
some of the very interesting, if you look at some of like the alchemy scientific stuff, you try combining that. And actually,
right,
the great work, was I was trying to tell you, is that it was this alchemical quest to turn lead into gold. And then
right.
Jung is brilliant. He mapped that as the human mind trying to turn the ego's work of, like, the raw ego into the gold
Yeah,
of consciousness, like total human
right, right.
integration. And he also saw this as he combined a lot of these concepts. And then going back to
That's a great concept
we'll talk
using
about it more in
alchemy.
another episode. Yeah, and then talking, because otherwise we'll be here forever, because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just giving you a taste. But um first of all, Isaac Newton was the guy's an idiot. He should have gave you an A because you're a historical researcher. Isaac Newton, right, was a dedicated alchemist, and it was his alchemy and belief of God that pioneered his metaphysics, later known as modern physics.
See, he didn't want none of that. He
He's an
looked at
idiot.
alchemy as he looked at it as like a like something in the
I
dark
know.
arts.
They
You know,
view it as a see that he's an a-hole because they view it as a primitive science. But what's interesting is that most people don't forget about this, that he spent trying to discuss. Now, they also term something called the philosopher's stone.
stone. Yeah, yeah,
And that's a
yeah.
great, this is trying to transmute metals.
Who's the famous? It's been a while since I talked about alchemy. The famous French alchemist who disappeared. They say he went into the future and he actually did it. He made it. He created the philosopher's stone. I
Mm.
can't think of his name. I remember as a little kid watching it on In Search of, and oh man, I wish I knew his name. But he's the most famous he's the most famous. Look up the most famous alchemist if you could for a second, if you have your phone. I'm just curious.
Sir Isaac Newton. I'm
It
kidding.
says it says no.
One
Oh,
of them, yeah, your teacher's an idiot. And then Nicholas Flamel, Parisian. Oh, that's it,
Nicholas.
Nicholas Flamel. And he claimed that
Yep,
he cracked the secret to the Philosopher's Stone and eternal life.
that's the guy. I studied him for a little while too. I think I mentioned him
Right.
in the. I put in John D, uh, who was an alchemist as well, but he
Right.
used magic. I think I might have went a little overboard with it, and the guy just like took it as like a complete, and he was accusing me of plagiarism. Jackass. Some professors I had in college were the best, and then some were just the absolute shite
Yeah,
it's been a
yeah,
while since I thought about it, you know. Um, so a prolific writings, published major works on synchronicity and religion. Then his tower that he made, the Bowlington Tower, a retreat center where he deepened his final philosophies. He died in May 1961 of a heart attack. He said he did not fear death. Jung approached it with scientific curiosity, viewing it as a natural completion of a task. He said the mind does not end at the skull. And that's pretty much just like Jung's biography. And we got into synchronicity, which
mm,
is cool. And it's like synchronicity is like one thing out
mm,
of like 55 things that you could break down with
right,
this guy.
right.
You know,
And
definitely
we'll tackle a little
the
each one
great.
on each episode.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely have. I want next episode. I want to get into the battle with Freud,
Yes,
because
yes.
they
And
go
this would be
back and
like
forth.
band battles, like Beatles versus Rolling Stones, or give me
Exactly.
another example. I'm like blanking out, like famous musician battles, or
Yeah. And then we'll get into the split, and the split in a way was synchronicity for him, because if he didn't have that split, he wouldn't have wrote the Red Book where
right,
most of this
yeah,
shit
right.
came from.
No, and again, it's interesting. It would be like because again, we'll talk about it, but the split was over the pleasure principle and like the weird stuff, like the
That
Oedipal
was the
complex, electric.
main thing. Yeah.
Young was saying, I
But
don't know.
then
I
and
think
then I
he
have a
does.
whole thing
I think he
written
has a
about it.
point though. Like I think you say that these guys had a lot of extramarital affairs, dude. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each one of them had their
No,
own
I think
demons.
say again.
Each one of them had their own demons.
Oh yeah. They all did back then. And it was more accepted back then. Like every guy probably had
Oh,
a
guys,
side
yeah,
piece.
yeah, guys, yeah.
Yeah.
They would visit the Yale brothel
Oh, there was a brothel everywhere, and
everywhere.
the wives would look the other way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
And it
true.
didn't,
That's true.
and it, you know, and
Most of them. Most of them.
most of them. I'm sure there was the religious guys that were loyal and stayed, but I think Frankel wouldn't have been like that. Frankel would have been, I think,
You,
loyal. I don't, you
uh,
know.
guy, sadly, circumstances a little different. All right. Went to the concentration
Yeah,
camps and he had to
I
live.
know. He probably was like, I'm holding on to this one,
What was
Um,
fascinating is that Freud was a Jew, Jung was Christian. That's also another
yeah,
interesting distinction. Frankel and Adler, I think, are Jewish too.
yeah. Adler's
I
Jewish.
think.
Yeah,
So kind of another interesting
yeah,
difference there.
yeah, yeah. It's
In
fascinating.
Young, I mean, there was accusations of him having anti-Jewish stuff. Have you heard about this?
That I didn't hear about. No.
I gotta look more. Oh, you or me? But Freud ends up running away to England.
Hmm. Oh,
Frankel,
during the war. During the
yeah,
war, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
away
yeah,
from Vienna.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what Young might have had. Well, Young had his breakdown in 30.
I think he just was in Switzerland.
Yeah, and he hung out in Switzerland during the war. And he just wrote. They didn't. The Nazis didn't mess with the Swiss. I don't think too much.
As far as I know, no. Why? I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I'd have to look a little more research.
Because they're neutral. Because Switzerland was
But
always
he
neutral.
was German, so I would wonder if he would have joined the Nazi side, like Heidegger.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder. I'm not sure though.
There's no documents on that he was like
One
saying,
controversial idea is, do you think Nietzsche would have become a Nazi?
oof,
All right, a lot of
probably.
people okay, there are two camps. One says that no, that Nietzsche would critique the Nazis. Another camp says yes, because the Nazis loved Nietzsche. So they would have held him as the Ubermensch. Interesting, right?
That's crazy. It really is,
Thought
man.
provoking.
Yeah. I mean, this was a good beginning of Young, and I'm
Part one.
already I'm shocked already. I'm oh my God, you mind fucked me on the first one with Abraham Lincoln and Kennedy. Like every episode, dude, there's always this amazing concept that we find, and it just, I did not expect to go there, which I that's what I love about the improvisation of
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
throwing the ball
Hmm.
back and forth. But any final notes on his biography?
No, good beginning. And then we're gonna dive into a little short bio, and then obviously we'll go back to it every when it comes up, certain things.
Yeah, yeah.
And we'll start. We already kind of did one with synchronicity. I actually may cut that part out and make it its own episode.
Yeah, because
I
it's
think it's pretty
so, but
good.
make it a part of
Like
Young,
part,
you know what I
well,
mean?
these are the Young series, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think his mom is, I'm fascinated by his mom. She intrigues me
Kind of
a lot.
mysterious.
Like, yeah. And like, what was her deal? Like, was she just nuts? Was he nuts as a kid, or just as a kid, kids see ghosts or they make believe friends? You know what I mean? Was he just seeing things and his mom was just crazy, or was she really a medium that had these things following her around? And obviously, maybe Carl Jung had that ability because it's in the genes. If you're a medium, you know, maybe he did have that ability to see the dead people and things like that. Obviously the Red Book, or just an overactive imagination that when he snapped.
You saying genes, that's interesting. Like me personally, I don't know about that because there's like no evidence. Um,
Well, I know a few mediums. I think Hans Holzer. Oh, he's not a medium. He don't count.
and for our viewers out
But
there, what is a medium? Like, what exactly is a medium? You're the occult expert.
a medium is somebody who can communicate with the dead. Okay, and
Now,
then there's a couple kinds of mediums.
right,
There's a trance medium like Sybil Leek and Ethel Myers, where they would actually go with Hans Holzer to a place and be the Ouija board, and deity or that spirit, whatever, would go through them, and they would literally contort their bodies like that person and say, "I'm so and so," and speak in a different voice or speak like that person. Documented stuff.
now what's the difference
Or
between that and demonic possession?
um demonic possession is a demon physically takes over your whole soul, you know, and your body, and your body. By, carving in, like in The Exorcist, there was 666 burnt into her body and burns
You
and stuff.
you don't think that mediums are tapping into something dark?
No, because you could go to a medium and talk to dead relatives if you
Okay.
have the money. And I know it sounds crazy, but I know people that have gone and the medium would say, "Oh, somebody close to you here is here." And they used to call you Skipper when you were a little kid because you always wore a captain's hat. And you'd be like, "How the fuck did you know that?" Before Facebook, before whatever. So I had a friend like something like that happened to, and he was just mind fucked by it. Never happened to me. Like the mentalist guy that I sent you. He's like, I don't know if that guy's a medium. The guy, I forget it. I wish I knew his name, but he's on all the talk shows and on the reels. But I believe in mediums. I believe that they can talk to the dead or they could talk to dead relatives.
What's
You know.
odd, I guess you would have to figure out a few things like um it I guess This should be like a whole nother episode on
You know,
mediums.
every episode we get
On mediums.
sidetracked.
I have my own problems with them. I think they're total
Well,
sham.
there's mediums, there's
And
clairvoyance,
I think they're communicating not with dead relatives, but okay, actually, yes, dead relatives, but not the ones in now, obviously Christianity here, right? Uh, they're communicating, they can communicate with souls in purgatory. They can't get to the
yeah,
souls in hell. It's too late unless God lets you go and lets the medium.
yeah,
But if he does that, um, it's God that perhaps but most mediums are interesting because you said that, and again, there's also another one I heard, Long Island medium too.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
but
don't even
anyway,
go
it can
there.
get it
I
can
mean,
get really
there's
dumb.
a lot of shams. There's a lot
No,
of
there's a lot of shams,
John
especially
Edwards.
now with social
Yeah.
media. Now you can like just search someone out on Facebook and like,
Oh,
oh,
you could have
like
a you could get a medium
no,
in
I
the
think,
like
dude,
this.
I think it's a sham because I think most mediums are shams. Now there are now in the spiritual world because most people forget about the spiritual. What I
Yeah,
think is that okay, see, people are not exactly mediums, but there are some people that are in tune with the spiritual. Many of
yeah,
these actually, and also some of them can actually make a Faustian deal with the devil and say, "Can I have this power?" And you'll get it.
yeah.
A lot of people do that,
But
and
there has been mediums that have worked with the police, and they found it's documented, like
no, no, I believe I'm talking.
missing children,
No, no,
things like that.
I believe you, but where do they get their power from? Because with mediums, again, what are they doing here is that they are contacting some sort of
Yeah,
spirits, and we call them like now with the ancestors, there's a problem with relatives. There's a problem
yeah,
because their souls, if they're good people, they go to heaven, right?
yeah.
They only come down if God lets them,
Right,
or if
right.
you want a sign, but they don't come down through a medium.
I know. I
Mediums
remember.
are communicating something else, and most of these can be
Yeah.
people that are playing game. I
It
think
could be like a demonic force will know things about you just as
you
well
see, well, that's
as your dead
it.
relative.
It's sort of similar when, and I know there's a movie, but it's when Father, Father
Karis,
from
Karis,
Barris,
Karis.
Father Karras, thank you, Father Karras. The demons are saying some stuff about his mother. You
Yeah,
see, and again, I think there's a demonic power to it. Most mediums.
yeah, yeah,
Also being said, it could be the case that a lot of people are spiritually in tuned. So they're like dream interpreters. I mean, there are
yeah,
also people that get signs and tell people like your grandma is warning you of something. You need to be careful,
yeah. Right,
right?
right.
But I would say 75% are shams. They use easily
That
tricks, man.
that's why I never went when my friend went to go talk to his grandfather. I was like, well, my grandfather passed and he's in heaven. I don't. You can't communicate with people in heaven unless you have a great connection with God and he's going to let you through, which nobody does. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I believe in the trance medium, though. I love that concept of going into a haunted house and having that spirit, because that spirit's trapped there. Remember now, the spirit's trapped in the house and they haven't gone to heaven or hell or purgatory. So the trance medium can help them get there.
To
The
hell.
trance medium wherever they need to go. You know what I mean?
Spirit, get out of here. Where do I go? Go to
Yeah. Well, they'll tell you to go to the light most of the time. And like I've studied Sybil Leek and Ethel Myers, and they were on like thousands of cases where they helped.
we should do an episode on mediums. Early
Yeah.
history and figure out real mediums versus and then talk about like the Long Island medium, like shams.
Oh God. I mean, she's like, oh, she'd just go up to people. How? Oh, could I? And then there's people that could read you, like Silence of the Lambs. That's a gift, which makes them like a medium. You know, I hear fireworks already, Jesus. You know, like they could read you and they could kind of read through you and see what you know. They could tell you about your family history or whatever, or you know. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say I believe in mediums, but you know, I'm not gonna say I don't believe in them. I've gone to them. I've had, you know, some interesting things happen to me with them, but I wouldn't
You
go
never had an
again.
experience with a medium.
Oh, I did, and everything came true. It was fucking crazy.
But how was it like
Oh, the woman was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life.
the medium?
She was, yeah, it's at a Renaissance fair, and she was angelic. I'm telling you, she had white long hair. She, you know, was angelic, and I just like my eyes connected with her, and she told me these things, and it all happened within like a month.
Now, is that a
And
medium
then
or a fortune teller?
a psychic.
A
I don't know, you
psychic.
know, the
Because
psychic.
those are
Yeah,
different.
yeah, uh, yeah. The mediums speak to the dead, or they help the dead. She was a psychic, and she told me things that did happen, you know. And then I said, I'm not doing this again. And then somebody made me do it again against my will, and it wasn't a good experience. And then I just got turned off by ever going to do that shit again, you know, because like for me, I'm done with that, you know, part of my life. Like you know, do what thy wilt. That's all I'm gonna say. You don't need a medium to tell you, you know, do what thy wilt, or Jesus Christ, or whoever, you know, that'll take you to a good place, or where you want to go.
Mm,
You know, going back to, you know, synchronicity,
mm,
fate, whatever you want to call it. You don't need a psychic, you know. So you got psychics, mediums, clairvoyants, you know, all that stuff. You know, I always been interested in trance mediums. That because I've been into the para psychology stuff. I always found them like how do they go in and literally change their voice and sound like
right.
somebody else? I mean, they could all be full of shit too. Who knows? But it's interesting.
Yeah,
It's very interesting.
I agree,
You
dude.
know.
And we'll definitely have an episode in the future on like mediums and
Yeah,
exploring a little
yeah.
bit like their deal, you know?
But I guess Young's mother would be more of a medium because if she was dealing with seances and
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
hooked up with
Her
some
case is interesting.
unclean.
I think she was possessed by a demon. I think you can explain all this with demonology,
Yeah.
explanations, but I guess we'll have enough time medium to kind of like have a dialectic.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, so this was a good hour and a half. Wait, what time did we start? At 7? Oh my, I
Yeah.
think we might be like
What time
two.
is it?
This
Yeah,
might be
the
like two.
cigars. For our viewers out there, you're still with us. I don't know if they're still with us. I think they
Yeah.
are. Subscribe. Always please subscribe. Let's make this channel grow. Like this video if you're awesome and you're a young
Yeah.
fan. Comment below what you
Yeah.
thought with some of our discussions.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do a fun question. Do you think mediums are real or not? Why or why not?
Yeah.
Because please tell us why. And as always, final thoughts, Professor Cheech.
Um, just for our viewers out there, young, old, whatever, check out Carl Jung. He's a genius. Get a, you know, get a book on him. I know he's hard to read, or watch a documentary. And if you want to learn about psychology, number one, you know, and how do you say it? Psychoanalytical. I can't speak. What do
Uh,
you call it?
which one? Like psychoanalysis, like
Yeah,
psychoanalytical?
yeah, psychoanalytical psychology and all this other crazy stuff like synchronicity. Um, you know, he came up with the collective unconscious. If you're interested in your mind and the soul and the mind for psychology, that's how I look at it. Spiritual and mind. That's Carl Jung. That's how I look at it. Freud is just mind. Adler's just mind. You know what I mean? So if you're following us and you want to learn more about psychology, as I'm learning constantly from Manny and my studies. So this was a great episode. Nanu Nanu, our Thursday night show. It's a hot one. And until next week, we'll come back and we'll do part two of Jung and Jung and Freud as they duke it out in the
Right.
ring.
Have a battle of the
Pretty much.
bands.
Exactly. You
All
know.
right, Cheech, my friend.
All
Nanu,
right.
nanu. Till the next week,
Nanu
my
Nanu.
friend.
Next week. Take care.
Take care, bud.